Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervase Chalmers. This is another Shropshire church. This is the church of St Giles, Chetton. There's evidence from old documents that there was an Anglo-Saxon church here, but this is really a 13th, 14th century building with the nave essentially rebuilt in 1891. It still boasts a very impressive chancel arch, and we'll see that. There's an interesting font. But this is a fairly typical medium size, if you will, rural English parish church. It's basically a big two-cell building with a west tower. No aisles. Were there aisles? Probably not, but certainly there aren't any anymore. So we'll have a look around and note, as usual, the salient features of the building. As usual, we start at the west end because that's how most English parish churches work. You come in towards the west end and you proceed. And of course, the font, which symbolises, obviously, baptism, the initiation, if you will. The font is by the door. We've got a nice medieval top there, probably 13th, 14th century, but might be later. The nave is very, very simple. You've got the simple Victorian windows. They are 4 each side, 2 small ones and 2 big ones, and 2 big ones in the middle. The lights are old oil lamps that have been adapted for electricity. Obviously, there's no mains gas out here back in the day, and therefore, if you want to light the church, what you'd have is you'd have a series of oil lamps like this hanging from the ceiling. They'd have to be lit individually and adjusted and trimmed, and it would be a difficult thing to do, and obviously now we don't need to do that. We have here a Victorian window here showing Mary and Martha. There's not very many memorials here, and they are to, again, the great and the good of the parish. This wasn't a very wealthy parish, not a parish with a big house, but you've still got John Perton here of Iden Burnell in this parish. It's one of these big parishes of multiple hamlets, you see. Here is the pulpit, one of these open Victorian ones. Obviously, if you're clergy, which is normally the case in the Victorian era, wearing long robes, then they don't have to worry about what their shoes look like or their trousers. We have there the Good Shepherd, Christ the Good Shepherd, and through into the chancel, which still retains a medieval character. We've got, mentioning medieval characters, we've got these two. This is this lady with her steepled headdress, which surely is 15th century, except she does look older than that. So you've got a steepled hat there, and then on the other hand we've got this gentleman, this bearded king, I suppose, and they both look very cheerful. The organ is by Nicholson of Worcester. Nicholson's, back in the day, parish, Palace Yard, Worcester. They're now based at Malvern, Great Malvern, I believe. And communion table, now placed altar-wise, with a piece of, basically recycled Jacobin panelling behind. Triple lancet, east window, and we've got there the aumbry. You can see where there's a recess for the door, basically. It had a wooden frame with a wooden door in it, but as in so many cases, it's been lost. On the other side, there is quite a simple, again, square opening for the piscina. And there is, in fact, a proper piscina in there. You can see there's this modern dish, and it's standing in the piscina opening. And so that is a very, very simple building. Not very many monuments, and all of them rather difficult, actually, to read in this light. This is William something or other. See what I mean? There's a bit of a batter on the walls here. This person here with a strap under the nose and wearing their face mask wrong. No, let's not go into that. It's again, it's medieval fashion going on there, and here we've got this lady with her hat on. There's Ruth leaning, and then we have that happy, jolly medieval lady, a bit of a caricature face there, and the pulpit. And so you get a good view, and what would originally have been a stand for an oil lamp has been adapted into an electric light. Well, I say oil lamp, might have been candles, I suppose. And consider the lilies of the field. He hath made everything beautiful in its time. So that's the inside here at Chetton. Incredibly simple building, but so typical of these little medieval, I say not little really, this is medium-sized medieval buildings, but very, very simple, no elaboration, just a tower, nave and chancel. So that's the inside here. Let's go and have a look at the outside next. Here we are outside at Chetton. I apologise for the wind, I can't do anything much about either the wind or the rain. Hey-ho, that's the Shakespeare would put it. And again you see the simplicity of the building. This medieval structure, although again the nave is largely rebuilt in the 1890s. So I'll have a look around the outside and we'll finish up, I suspect, at the porch. So out from under the tree, you can see you've got this wheel window at the east end of the nave, and then there's the chimney, which is to do with the old heating system. A couple of blocked doorways there, which again, one of them is older than the other. The one above the one below the chimney is going to be later, and actually the other one there's not a blocked door. That's a blocked low side window. What are low side windows? Older literature, you'll often find them called lepers' windows, because the idea was, well, they're for lepers who could be in the churchyard and they could watch the mass. Well, the reality is there weren't that many lepers in medieval England, and they really wouldn't have been encouraged to come nearer the church, even if they stayed outside. So really, that doesn't work. The probable explanation is that at Mass you'd have someone would ring a bell out of the window so that people around could hear that this is a Mass. This is in place of the Sanctus bells that bigger churches would often have in a little bell cot. You can see the tower here. The upper part is Victorian, the lower part, well, at least partly medieval. The nave, again, very, very definitely Victorian. So this is the south side. It's the normal main entrance side. You then go around the north side, which is always, or almost always, less exciting. The exception is when the north side is the entrance. And it can happen. It often happens when the north side is what faces the village, but sometimes, and nevertheless, they'll say, well, actually, you have to go round to the south side to get in. And here, the village kind of lies around the church, as you can see here. There's a old farm over there, and so the south side is the main entrance. Because the nave's rebuilt in the Victorian era, there isn't a blocked north doorway, which you would normally expect. Here you've got the organ chamber, and these are built on, of course, because a big pipe organ like the Nicholson here it's a big instrument. You need plenty of space. So the old vicarage is over that way. Good collection of memorials. Didn't tend to get the very old ones on the north side, basically because the north side is the Middle Ages. It's where you bury people who die out by unbaptized babies and people who die excommunicate. But that sort of imagery disappears later on. Back around the tower here, certainly the base, so it's been rebuilt in the Victorian era. And was there a medieval tower at all? That's a good question. It's a very rural parish. This one, it's the end of the road. You've got to turn around and go back again to leave Chetton. And so we come back here to the porch. And in here we have, this is obviously Porch Victorian, but the doorway is 13th, 14th century. Nice lamp up there and behind the text. You shall reverence my sanctuary, for I am the Lord. That's Leviticus 19. So that 1930. That's a nice doorway, and the rain has eased off a little bit. So just have a close look at this low side window, because like I say, low side windows they're one of the great mysteries. What I've presented is the most likely modern explanation, that it's to do with ringing a bell at the Mass, at the consecration, at the elevation of the host, but it may not be. Yes, that's a low side window, all right. And very often they're blocked up because obviously after the Reformation there's no need for them. So that's a low side window, and that would be the clergy door, the priest's door for the Middle Ages, and you get this nice 13th century lancet here. So there we have it, St Giles, Chetton. The dedication is quite fitting for a church that is basically in the middle of nowhere. St Giles of Provence is said to have been basically an old hermit who lived in the woods of Provence and had as his companion a deer. The deer was hunted, as huntsmen are wont to hunt deer, and St Giles, trying to protect it, had his hand pierced. And according to the legend, he didn't heal the wound because he wished to feel his humility. And so churches dedicated to St Giles were often in remote areas, here in the woods, for example. Well, the woods of Shropshire have shrunk, but St Giles, Chetton is still here. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.